Hi, welcome back to our campaign prep stream. If you've been watching the campaign prep series, then you know a couple things. You know that this is not the normal format, just me having my head inside this big box like this. And also, you know that we don't normally stream on Mondays, we normally stream on Friday mornings. So I just have a few things to discuss regarding the kind of the state of the channel currently and what we're looking at, what changes have happened, and what we can do to get us course corrected, so to speak. So obviously, all of our efforts are being pushed into the Rime of the Frostmaiden stream, which happens every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. We have had one successful session. There are some minor technical difficulties that came out of that session, so we are currently working on troubleshooting that, primarily the audio. So rest assured that we'll be trying a few different things and hopefully getting a fix to that when we stream that series, when we resume that stream series tomorrow night. Beyond Rime of the Frostmaiden, so I also did, like I said, campaign prep, which is what this is labeled as, this stream. And I also did, this could have been just chatting in Twitch. I labeled it as D&D just because I wanted to make sure I was attracting people who were interested in D&D, because that's primarily what we're going to be talking about. But realistically, this is going to be us discussing where to go from here, because the campaign that campaign prep stream was for is currently on hiatus. I made the decision because we had two players cancel, one of which was pretty last minute, before our last session of Stygian Queen. So then the next day I just kind of made the choice that everybody's schedule seems to be up in the air. It seems like it's hard to nail down, even with an every other week play schedule. It's hard to nail down and get full attendance for either that or our Saltmarsh campaign. So I just said I'm going to be done running online for that group for the time being. We can still play stuff, but I'm not gonna run any D&D for them. Until we can meet again in person. And that's fine. I don't hold that against them or anyone else. Everyone's schedules are what they are, and everyone, that's kind of, unfortunately, that's one of the truths, not only about online play, but just about D&D in general, and just role-playing in general, is that it's hard to get a group of adults to sit down and, consistently for any amount of time. And I lucked out a lot by getting 6 people who are able to sit down and play with me every Tuesday night for Rime of the Frostmaiden. So I'm not going to push my luck. I'm going to enjoy the time that I have with that group. And then with that other group, unfortunately, it'll be just on hiatus until we meet in person again, which, honestly, with COVID, I don't know when that's going to be. So, all that is to say that campaign prep, since Stygian Queen is on hiatus, that means that the campaign prep stream series is also kind of on hiatus. So I wanted to reach out to you all, to my viewers, to kind of get your ideas as well, to see what you would prefer to see. Now, if you're watching this live, which I think there's only a couple of you watching live, you can let me know in chat, and we can discuss that now throughout the course of this video. But if you're watching this on VOD on YouTube, please comment below and let me know what you would like me to do as far as the future of the campaign prep series goes. So there's a couple different options. The first one of the things that came to mind for me would be to continue to do campaign prep, but have it focus on Rime of the Frostmaiden. And it would then run every Friday instead of every other Friday, because we have Rime every Tuesday. So then my campaign prep stream would run every Friday, and I'd be prepping the session coming up. That is an option. I guess I've been avoiding that simply because I wanted to do campaign prep around something that was totally homebrew and thus required, in my opinion, more work, more creativity. Although I could also see the benefit to prepping something that isn't homebrew. How does my process look when I'm prepping a published campaign? And that's what we would see if I started doing Rime of the Frostmaiden. If we did that, then I would start that this week. I would start that this Friday, because I will have Rime of the Frostmaiden, the actual campaign, as of tomorrow. I'm really excited for that. That's the release of that campaign, so I'm really excited to get that finally in my hands, quote unquote, in my Roll20 account, so that I can go through all the assets, look at all the maps, read all the stuff. I know there's a lot of content, especially in the first 2 chapters of that book. The first chapter being 10 Towns, the second chapter being Wilderness travel and exploration in Icewind Dale. I know those are 2 really long chapters, and I'm so excited for that. Plus, there's some awesome encounters later on in the campaign. So that's one option. I could shift gears for my campaign prep stream to be Rime of the Frostmaiden. I think that's probably the most obvious. Another thing that I could do if we wanted to stick with the prepping a published adventure, but we wanted to do something different than Rime, since we're doing Rime every week already. Like I'm a little afraid of, what do you call it, of burning out, because I'm running Rime on Tuesdays for the stream, and then I will also be running Rime every other Thursday for another group, starting in a couple weeks. So that's already going to be 3 sessions of Rime every 2 weeks, which is a lot. So then if my campaign prep is also centered around Rime of the Frostmaiden, it could just be that I'm just immersing myself too heavily in that campaign. And then I would unfortunately suffer from burnout, which is a very real thing. So that's something I want to consider as well. So another option would be to prep a different D&D published campaign and run through my process for what I would do to prep, say, Curse of Strahd, or prep Tomb of Annihilation, or Storm King's Thunder, something like that. I have access to all those on D&D Beyond, so it wouldn't be too difficult for me to just set that up and start talking about that and talking about my process, which is cool. I mean, my process isn't cool, but like just prep in general. I love campaign prep. I love doing that because it's, to me, it's work that's never wasted, because then I will always have that document, that knowledge, that whatever, that file that is then there and ready to go anytime I want to run that. So if I prep Tomb of Annihilation, even though I'm not running Tomb of Annihilation for anybody currently, well, that means that I have a prepped version of Tomb of Annihilation sitting there, and all I have to do is make a few changes here and there for specific characters, which I think is awesome. Beyond that, a couple other things I could do as far as my Friday morning streams. It's no secret that I am developing a tabletop role-playing game, a tabletop role-playing system, based around my books, my Astral Tides books. These guys right here, of which there are 4 currently that you can pick up from my website. It is a series that's all about space pirates, literal space pirates, pirate ships in space. I think that's a better way to put it than just saying space pirates. So I'm pretty far along. We played a full campaign of it. We streamed about the latter third of that campaign last year. That finished up earlier this year. And then I also ran a handful of other test sessions. The system is really far along. I'm very happy with where it is. So I could do Friday morning game design streams, and we could talk about the Astral Tides role-playing game system and what I'm doing, what I want to do. We could talk about the mechanics of the system, where I landed on certain things, why I like certain things about it, what things I want to change, that sort of thing. And then that would be nice, because then that would sequester my game design, like the time that I'm currently now, because I took a pretty long hiatus from working on Astral Tides, and now I'm starting to come back to it, doing a little bit here and there. Well, that would at least give me a schedule that I could adhere to and be like, okay, for 1 hour every Friday morning, that's when I'm working on Astral Tides. And then you get to watch me do that as well. So that's another option. So we could do my campaign preps. Let's just recap, because I see I actually have a couple viewers coming in now. Hi, Casey. So if you have any feedback or any thoughts on this, please let me know in chat. And like I said, if you're watching this on YouTube, comment below. But as far as I know, the Friday morning stream could be prep Rime of the Frostmaiden, run every Friday, and prep Rime. The bonus is that you're getting extra, you're getting an extra view of Rime of the Frostmaiden, but from behind the DM screen, and specifically what I'm doing to prep that campaign for my players. The downside, the potential downside, is that because I'll be running 2 campaigns of Rime and then also streaming Rime prep every Friday, is that I could burn out on it. And I see that being a real issue, because I do suffer from burnout. That, I mean, every DM does, especially if they're running the same campaign for 2 groups. So I would almost want to avoid that option, even though it's really enticing. I would almost want to avoid streaming Rime of the Frostmaiden prep, just so that I'm giving myself a break from Icewind Dale, every so often. So that's option 1, is stream Rime of the Frostmaiden prep. Option 2, prep a different campaign. Pick a different campaign from D&D Beyond, a different adventure. I hate that they're called adventure modules. I hate that 5th edition is calling these adventures when, like, to me, adventure has always been synonymous with scenario, with like a single session, not a session, but, you know, like a single, like one element of, like, for instance, what's one? Here we go. I would call this a campaign. I would call this book a campaign module. And then the Descent into Avernus. And then, let's say, the Dungeon of the Dead 3, right here. I would call that an adventure. So I hate that the official terminology for 5th edition modules is adventure. Because this is huge. This isn't an adventure. This is a campaign. Campaign is a series of adventures. That's what I've always believed. Squeaky chair. But anyway, that's a little aside rant. So like I said, option 1, streaming Rime prep every Friday. Option 2, streaming a different campaign prep every Friday. And that's more informative just for you. You're in that campaign. Sire Gwyn says he's in that campaign. You're in Avernus right now? I've read most of Avernus. I've read a lot of the early game stuff of Avernus. The Dungeon of the Dead 3. Well, I'm glad I didn't show any more of that then. I like what I've read for Avernus. I think it's a really cool campaign. I love the premise of it. I love Mad Max in D&D. I think that's awesome. I played in one session of Avernus. I guested on a friend's campaign. He was like, if you're available to play, you can play this NPC. So I played like a CR9 NPC who was, you know, had his own bike down in Avernus, and it was really fun. So let's recap. Prep Rime of the Frost Maiden every Friday. Prep a different campaign every Friday. And that's just to show you my process. That's just to show you, like, after I buy a book, what does it look like? What do I do? And you and I would go through that together. Talk about my Astral Tides role-playing game. Helps if I show the front. Helps if I show it right. There we go. Talk about my Astral Tides role-playing game every Friday. And that's more of a meat and potatoes. That's less of a prep and more of just a game design stream. And then the fourth option would just be for me to play something, which, you know, like, it's kind of against, like, I really want to use this stream to inform people, and not really inform, that's probably the wrong word, but to illuminate, or rather open up, like, my prep and my the style that I have when I approach game design and running games and that sort of thing. That's what I want the stream to be primarily about. But I did, you know, experiment with streaming Black Mesa. That stream has kind of fallen away. I did that every Sunday night. So I could play video games, I could play tabletop games, whatever. I think that's, you know, if people really want that, I'll do it, but that's not really my thing. I think I would rather focus on one of the first three. So if anyone in chat, because there's a few of you here now, if anyone in chat has an opinion between streaming Rime of the Frost Maiden prep, streaming another campaign prep, or streaming my Astral Tides role-playing game design work, please let me know. Yeah. Otherwise, like I said, if you're watching this on the VOD, let me know in the comments. I do check comments every day. Because I don't get a lot, so that also means I don't get, like, the toxic YouTube comments, which is kind of great right now. So I'm free to check them every day and not worry about, like, hurting my pride. Yeah, but otherwise, like I said at the top of the stream, Frost Maiden is going great. It's a lot of fun. We're just doing the encounters of the week so far. We'll be getting to the actual Rime of the Frost Maiden content probably either mid next session or after next session. It depends on mid next week. So not tomorrow, but next week, either in the middle of the session next week or the week following that. It depends on how quickly my players plow through everything. So, but it's going great. We've had a little bit of technical difficulties where you probably notice if you've watched. The audio is pretty low for a couple players, myself included, and for everyone else, it's at a desirable level. So, we're working on it. It's kind of a weird technical fluke. We don't know why the audio happened in the way it did, because it's never done that before. And I've streamed with this individual before, and the audio's never been an issue. So it's kind of weird that it's doing it now all of a sudden. So we're going to troubleshoot that a little bit more and see what we can do. Right now, my current plan for it is I'm just going to record the audio locally. So the stream will still, if there are audio issues, the stream will still reflect that, unfortunately, but at least I can, after I record the audio locally, I can then, normalize it, equalize the levels and all that. And then when I upload it to YouTube, I can upload it with the new audio so that at least the VODs on YouTube will be up to date and evenly balanced and everything when it comes to audio. So that's just an option. Currently doing homeschooling, so you probably hear my son upstairs at the table. He's taking a break right now and playing with one of my board games, which is squeaky chair, which is risky because he actually broke the board of that board game. So he's been on board game parole or probation. I guess I don't know. He's been in board game jail for a while because I don't want him to break anything else. But we had a talk, and now he's playing again. So hopefully he won't break any other components for me. So yeah, if anyone has an opinion, I have a few viewers in chat now, but I don't see anybody talking about it. But again, just basically wondering what I should be doing with my Friday morning campaign prep stream since Stygian Queen is on hiatus. So if you have a preference, if you would like to see me prep Rime of the Frost Maiden, if you'd like to see me prep a different adventure, again, maybe Descent into Avernus, because that one I actually have the physical book for. I have access to, I think, every adventure on D&D Beyond. A friend of mine who I occasionally game with was nice enough to gift me with access to his legendary bundle or whatever it's called on D&D Beyond. So I have access to pretty much every single book that has been published so far. I don't know if he's going to pick up Rime or not, so I don't know if I'll have that on D&D Beyond, which is a little annoying. But that, I'm not going to complain about having access to literally everything else, because it has made my work a lot easier. Thinking of prepping my own one-shot for Christmas, Sire Gwyn says, for people, and I have no DM history. Anything to help with that? Yeah. One-shots are tough. I actually find one-shots to be tougher than long-form games, because I like to hold off. I love cliffhangers. I love, seeding little information tidbits here and there. For my players to explore and find later. So I really, and that kind of helps with my improv, the improv part of my DMing is I can seed something, whether that's a riddle or a name or something. And then later on, when I feel like it's appropriate, I can make up whatever that is, whatever it relates to. One shots are a little tougher because there's a time constraint that you are adhered to. So my first question would be, how many players do you think that you'll be having at your table? Because then that's going to determine how many encounters you want to go for. And we use the term encounter in the D&D way, which is to say anything that stops the player's forward progress. So it's not just combat. It's roleplay, 5-ish players. That's a good number. 3 to 5 is the ideal, and that's what most of D&D's official stuff is balanced around. So 3 to 5 is a good one. I guess we're gonna prep Sire Gwyn's session here for this one, but yeah, 5 is a good number. So with a group of, let's say you're doing 4 hours of gaming, and a group of 5 players, and let's say they're focused players. Let's say they don't get too distracted. They don't have side conversations. They don't check their phones too often. They are focused on the game. Which, if you can get 5 people who do that all at once, kudos to you, because it hasn't happened to me yet. But 5 focused individuals, I would say, could get through 4 to 5 encounters in 4 hours, with 2 of those encounters being combat. And so then you want to look at what are the other 2 to 3 encounters. You probably want to run the gamut. You want to have everything, and that's another reason why one shots are tough, is because you want to get a variety. So I would do a role play, a social encounter. Give those characters with high charisma something to focus on. I would do an exploration encounter, or a travel encounter, rather. And that's not to say combat on the road. That is to say, skill checks involved in travel. And there's different ways that you can do that. It depends on how gamey you want it to be versus how narrative you want it to be. And that's up to your style as a DM, which if you're new, you don't know your style yet. So that's something that you just got to figure out and what you want to do. When in doubt, always go back to the PHB and just read how the PHB recommends you do it, and follow that. So I would do a social encounter, a travel encounter, a combat encounter. I would do 2 combat encounters. I like combat personally, so I would do 2. And also 5th edition, like any Dungeons and Dragons edition, is built around combat. that's most of the cool stuff your players can do is going to be combat focused. So you're going to want to do 2 combat, if not 3. And then that third one, maybe a puzzle would be fun. I don't think you need a dungeon, but you could. So that's what I do. That's how I prep my one-shots, is I go, what encounters am I going to do? And I usually plan for 5. In fact, I usually do 5 or 6, just so that I have extra in case there's time for it. But I always make sure there's one of them that's like a side quest or that's more modular, so I can move it around or just remove it altogether. So we know that you want social, exploration, combat, and then something for 5th, like, again, a puzzle, or lore, something like that. And then maybe a 6th one that's extra. So we got an idea for your distribution of encounters. Now it basically just comes down to what are they going to be playing? How can you... I was thinking the Nutcracker. Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you want to do like a play, like that'd be awesome. Like some sort of theater-related D&D module. That'd be great. That'd be really fun. But then it just comes down to, like who are the characters and how can you tailor these encounters for them? So that's when you want to look like, especially with like your, and this is what I do. So like an easy trap to fall into is like, okay, this is the social encounter. So the bard is going to participate and everyone else just has to sit there and watch because they're like, well, I don't have charisma. And this isn't necessarily like a DMing thing. This is more on the part of the players, where the players look at their stats and they go, well, I have a -1 on charisma, so I'm not going to do anything this encounter. And that's fine, but it's also kind of boring. So usually what I do for a social encounter is I know that the player or players who have decent charisma, who are proficient in persuasion, that sort of thing, they're going to be interacting. And they're probably honest, like, I usually have my NPCs pick out the character with the highest charisma and go to them because they're like, they can tell, you know what I mean? Like, these NPCs can tell who is more open based on just how they hold themselves and how they present themselves to conversation. But then I would probably look at 1 or 2 of the other PCs, and I would look at their background, I would look at their defining traits, I'd maybe look at the magic items they're carrying, stuff like that, and I would go, what would this NPC pick out about these people? Like, this person was an urchin, and this NPC has lived in this city their whole life. So maybe this NPC recognizes this character from when they were a kid, and maybe remembers like, hey, when you were a kid, I remember you stealing, whatever. And then it loops another character into the scene in a meaningful and narratively appropriate way, when otherwise that player probably would have just been like, I'll just sit back and let it happen. Like, I'll just sit back and watch the scene go. So that's some social prep on how to get a social scene to include more than just the social character. And then for combat, you definitely want to play to your character's strengths. If you have like a barbarian and a fighter, you want to make sure you give them a lot of like weak targets to chew through. And then you want to have maybe 1 or 2 strong targets. You want to play with range as well. You want to have some frontline and some ranged characters because that's going to challenge your players. It depends on how challenging you want combat to be. 5th edition, in the early levels 1 through 5, the power is more, it's variable. Players could win, monsters could win, like it's almost a coin toss. And it really comes down to how many actions are being taken on either side. So if the players are taking more actions, if there's more players, if the player, my ladies love barbarians, yeah. They're great. Barbarians are great, man. I love them. But anyway, if there's more players than monsters, especially in levels 1 through 5, the players are going to have a distinct advantage. If there's more monsters than players, in levels 1 through 5, the monsters are going to have a distinct advantage. And even though one die roll can change that, the flow of combat is going to be such that the side with fewer actions, with fewer turns, will lose. And that's going to happen, I would say, probably 9 times out of 10. The difference is that your players, being 5 different minds approaching combat with all of their tools, are more likely to turn a difficult or a broken combat encounter into a win than you are. And that's not to say that you are tactically unsound. That's just to say that you have one set of eyes staring at 6 monsters, and they have 6 sets of eyes staring at 1 character each. So they're able to see more and they're able to process more. So that's just something to keep in mind. So try and loop in as many characters as possible for each scene for each encounter, and try and play to your character's strengths. So if you have a barbarian, give them stuff to beat. If you have a wizard, give them maybe a really highly mobile character that's pelting, that's harassing the party from range. Give them problems to solve that is within their tool set to solve. But then you'll, again, for combat, I tend to go a little bit on the harder side just because I want to challenge my players to think tactically. I don't want them to just wade through encounters. So that's how I would prep. That's how I would prep, or start prepping a one-shot at least. And a lot of it from there. I'm sorry, I just got a message on my phone. I'm reading real quick regarding the Rime of the Frost Maiden stream. A lot of it from there just comes down to tailoring for your group and deciding what kind of story you want to tell. If it's Christmas, Nutcracker would be really fun. I'm really intrigued by doing like a play, and I don't want to talk through too much of how I would do it because I really want you to come up with your own ideas too. So, but yeah, hopefully that's enough to get you started. So there's how I would prep a one-shot. Now that we got that going. Yeah, so, I mean, if nobody here really wants to voice any strong opinions, which is fine, I might just come up with something on my own. It might not be Dungeons & Dragons, like I said. Maybe for a few Fridays I'll just play something, or I'll just do like a just chatting thing, kind of like this, where I just talk through a process for something, and then before I come up with a series idea. But again, prepping Rime of the Frost Maiden is an option. Prepping a different adventure is an option, and prepping, doing a game design for Astral Tides, or just playing something. If you have any thoughts, let me know. Thank you so much, guys, for following this stream, following the channel. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out. Thank you, Sarah Gwynn, for participating in chat and asking questions. You got me to think about one-shot prep, which I don't think about too often, because all my games now tend to be long-form games. So thank you for participating. And again, if anybody has any comments, any questions, any concerns, you can find me at the information down below. That's my Twitter handle, at Nicholas Corey, which I am woefully inactive on Twitter, but if I get a message, I will respond to it. And then that's also my website, nicholascorey.com, where you can get a hold of me directly, or where you can purchase one of my books, or all my books even. Like I said, I have the 4 Space Pirate books. That's what Astral Tides is about, and I have some more on there. Valixian says, tactically, the swashbuckling Battlemaster Halfling uses 3 pushing maneuvers to bounce an enemy by the bugbear, wielding a halberd with polearm and sentry feats. Yeah. And then, of course, you got stuff like that. You get players who build their... Like, I could do a whole video on polearm mastery, and Sentinel is actually the name of it, the feat Sentinel. I could do a whole episode on those 2 feats and how they are so easy to exploit and so powerful, just those 2. And I really think it was an oversight on Wizards of the Coast. I mean, I could do a whole stream on things that I don't like about 5e, but I also kind of think that that's kind of lame. I don't like talking about the things I don't like talking about the things that I don't like, especially on something like this. I'd rather talk about the things that excite me, the things that I like. 5e has a lot of problems. I will agree with that. I will not disagree with anybody who says things like combat in 5e is boring, or who says things like the classes are unbalanced. Because I totally agree with with those assessments. But at the same time, 5e is my favorite version of D&D to run, and I think it's my favorite one to play. So, yeah, I mean, even though it has problems, everything we love has problems. That's just part of realizing. Still loses to a ranged assassin fighter on a surprise encounter. Well, yeah, of course it does. It's hard to beat surprise, especially with an assassin. So, surprise is powerful. Surprise is very powerful. So anyway, if you have any thoughts, any concerns, any questions, let me know. Let me know what you want me to do with my Friday morning stream, and we will talk about that. I would like to get something on the books for as early as this week, but if it's put off till next week, that's fine too. Thanks for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a like and leave a comment. So, great. Have a good one, everybody. Thanks for your support.